Hi gear nerds, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to compare the overdrives in the Quad Cortex and the Line6 HX effects. I'm going to do this into the front of a valve amp so we get an idea of the overdrives themselves and not worry about amp modelling. The Quad Cortex came out about a year ago and is based on the latest technology. The retail price in the UK is £1,600. The Line6 Helix came out on June the 11th, 2015, so it's been out for about 7 years. And the HX Effects is an all-in-one multi-effects box that contains all of the Helix effects, but no amp modelling. The retail price of the HX is £469, so it's less than a third of the price of the Quad Cortex, and the technology inside is a lot older. So let's see how the overdrives match. Okay everybody, I'm back. You can see, so first of all, here's my clean tone. That's the note pickup, bridge pickup. So you can see what we've got set up here is I've set up a couple of presets. In fact, I could have put all of the drives on the Quad Cortex. I've got a preset called First 8 Drives. I just did that because the settings have 8 blocks across the top, but I could put a lot more blocks on there. If you switch over and have a look at the HX effects, you can only have six models set up in this configuration. In fact, it will take a total of 9 in any preset, but there's 6 if we're using them this way. And I've had a go at trying to equalize the levels and so on, but we'll have a little play with the settings while we go on. I think I told you, I think I'll show on screen right now the list of the drives. I think I've shown them to you already. So let's just start. Now some of these are not my favourite kind of a drive, so I'm not quite sure what to do with them. But here's the DS1. This one is a little bit loud. Sorry, I had to adjust the levels I was clipping. So you can see how easy it was to set. These three drive tone level, the 3 menu items, are equivalent to the 3 knobs across the top, which is all good when you've got three knobs. It gets harder when there are more settings on a pedal. These things sound very, very similar to me. Bridge pickup. You can see the levels are not exactly the same between these two. In fact, if you go and edit this, the Quad Cortex gets nowhere near. And I'm going to just give you my quick verdict off the top of my head. There's nothing to separate those. They're pretty damn similar. Let's try this one. This is a drive I never use. I only just put it in. It's the heavy distortion, which is the Boss MT2. You know what? I quite like that. Way too quiet. Well, you know what? I would say that the HX effect sounded slightly better on that one. It had a sort of chunkier bottom end and really had a thump to it. Okay, let's try the Stupa OD. You know what? I've forgotten what this is. Oh, it's an SD one. It's a Boss SD one. This time we're going to go for the Cortex first. That was a bridge pickup. On that one, I'm slightly giving it to the Quad Cortex. I like it. They do sound very similar. And of course, you know, we could do a lot of tweaking on the individual settings, and don't even start me if we put an EQ in front of it or behind it. Right, let's see what the OCD. Now, this is a pretty good model on both of them. Let's do, oops, can be a bit of a problem. That's the OCD on the HX. both quite inspiring, the sounds. I'm going to slightly give it to the Quad Cortex, but you know the HX is no slouch on that one. Let's just go to the next one. Oh my god, this is the fuzz face. I have no idea what to do with this. That's the first one of the drives where the Cortex has got loads of volume available. Okay, this triangle fuzz is a big muff. Don't know what to do with this either. Cortex one just sounds better. It's got more sort of rumble and throb to it. Okay, right, now I've got to go to another preset to go on to the next set. So here's the second 5. Ah, Tube Screamer. Okay, let's see what we get if we hit a Tube Screamer. Personally, I hate Tube Screamers. Let's see, which one is it? It's that one. No, it isn't. Whoops, wrong thing. Right, now this one is actually quite nice on the HX effect. This is their clone. Something nicer about the Quad Cortex on this. Okay, this is the Dod 250. Oops. It's a bit more level. Very strange. Bit of a broken speaker kind of thing. Okay, now I've actually got to switch the preset. Definitely sounds smoother, but whether or not it sounds like a Dod 250, I couldn't tell you. Definitely sounds more pleasant, but whether it's the real thing, I can't tell you. Maybe if we switch the gain level slightly, drop the gain. Is there? Let's try the next one. Forgotten what it is. Oh, it's a Range Master treble booster. This is strange because the HX has got a lot more controls on it. You can see, I've had to turn the level right down. Because it's incredibly loud, it's incredibly loud. I don't think you're getting a good flavour of that because that's better into an already overdriven thing, and that is not giving you a good flavour, but they're both pretty good. Right, finally the Rat. closer by switching the knobs. Both of those racks are really good, but I have to say, again, the Cortex takes it for me. That just seems much more organic. All this has told me is that with enough knob tweaking, you can get any sound you want out of either of these things. Anyway, there you go. First off, let's talk a bit about how easy or hard this test was to set up. The Quad Cortex has a touch screen, and the user interface makes it very intuitive to add effects to any preset. I just tap the screen, scroll through a list of options, and then select the effect that I would like in my preset. When it appears, I can tweak the settings using the on-screen controls or use the knobs that are built into the foot switches. The HX has no touchscreen, so you have to scroll through menus to get to the options you want. Having said that, it is pretty easy, although not quite as effortless as the Quad Cortex approach. The other thing that I had to consider for this comparison is which overdrives do both of these units have. The HX has an incredible 55 overdrive and distortion pedal models, but 17 of these are what they call legacy models and are based on older approaches to modelling. The Quad Cortex has a total of 26 overdrive and distortion models, so that's under half the number of the HX. However, both of these modelers have bass-specific overdrives too, which we should discount. The HX has 4 and the Quad Cortex has 5. So when you remove these and the legacy drives, the final number of guitar overdrives in each is HX effects 34 and Quad Cortex 21. Depending on how you look at it, you could say the HX has 50% more overdrives than the Quad Cortex. Obviously, we shouldn't just compare these units on the number of effects. No amount of effects that sound terrible would be worth very much at all. Because each of these makers have selected some different effects to model, I've gone through the list of models to find a list of effects that both of the units model, and here is the list. In total, there are 11 overdrive models that claim to be modelled on exactly the same pedal that are on both systems. Okay, so what are my conclusions after hearing that? The first thing to notice is that not all of the models have exactly the same controls. The general trend is that the HX has more settings to play with for each model, although for one or two the Cortex has got a couple more. The second thing that I noticed was that the overall levels of volume varied significantly between the two devices. In general, the models on the HX had a lot more volume available in the controls for each pedal. Having said that, the Cortex is more intended as an all-in-one system, and balancing levels might help for consistency across presets. The third thing I noticed that throughout this test, the ease of use of the Quad Cortex made it much better to use and tweak at every step. It's not that the HX is particularly hard to use, the touch-sensitive buttons help a lot, but the Cortex is so much more modern and intuitive. Finally, my conclusion on the sounds were that most of the time the Quad Cortex had richer and more complex overdrives. This wasn't absolutely consistent, as a couple of the HX overdrives gave really nice tones, but in general the Cortex delivered tones that I found hard to tell apart from analog pedals, where the HX tones had a feeling of something missing when played back to back with the Cortex. So my conclusion is that the Quad Cortex overdrives are better. They're better from a sound point of view, and they're easier to use. In fact, they're almost as easy to use as analog pedals. Obviously, does that mean that the HX is no good? Of course not. The drives are perfectly usable and enjoyable if you don't play them back to back with anything else. You shouldn't notice anything bad about them at all. And obviously, if you play them in a band mix, nobody is going to know the difference. Okay guys, if you've got this far, then please hit that like button, hit subscribe and hit the notification bell if you can. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.